This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Lucy Burgoyne. Bohemian San Francisco. Its restaurants and their most famous recipes. The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords. Section 14. Some food variants and about dining. Some food variants. Variants of food preparation sometimes typify nationalities better even than variants of language or clothing. Take the lowly cornmeal, for instance. We find that Italian polenti, Spanish tamale, Philadelphia scrapple, and southern darky crackling cornbread are but variants of the preparation of cornmeal in delectable foods. It is a long step from plain cornmeal mush to scrapple, which we consider the highest and best form of preparing this sort of dish. But all the intermediate steps come from a desire to please the taste with a change from simple cornmeal. Crackling cornbread is the first step, and here we find that the darkies of the South found good use for the remnants of the pork after lard was tried out at hog-killing time. By mixing the cracklings with their cornmeal and making a pone, which they cooked before an open fire on a hoe blade, the first of this being called crackling hoe cake. Good scrapple is one of the finest breakfast dishes that we know during the winter, and when prepared after the recipe given here, it precedes all other forms of serving cornmeal. To mix it properly, one must know the proper values of herbs and condiments, and this recipe is the result of much discriminating study. Modesty prevents us giving it more than the name of scrapple. It is prepared in the following manner, differing from that made in Philadelphia. Scrapple. Take a young pig's head and boil it until the flesh drops from the bones. In water to which has been added 2 good-sized onions, quartered, 5 bruised cloves of garlic, 1 bay leaf, sweet marjoram, thyme, rosemary, a little sage, salt and pepper. Separate the meat from the bones and chop fine. Strain off the liquor and boil with cornmeal, adding the chopped meat. Put in the cornmeal gradually until it makes a stiff mush. Then cook for half an hour with the meat. Put in shallow pans and let cool. To serve, slice about ½ inch thick and fry in olive oil or butter to a light brown. As originally prepared, the tamale was made for conveyance, hence the wrappings of corn husk. This is a Spanish dish, having been brought to this country by the early Spanish explorers, and adopted by the Indian tribes with whom they came in contact. In the genuine tamale, the interior is the sauce and meat that goes with the cornmeal, which is alternately laid with the husks, and when made the ends are tied with fine husk. For meat, chicken, pork, and veal are considered the best. There is also a sweet tamale, made with raisins or preserves. The following recipe for tamales was given us by Luna. Tamales. Boil 1 chicken until the meat comes from the bones. Chop the meat fine and moisten it with the liquor in which it was boiled. Boil 6 large chili peppers in a little water until cooked so they can be strained through a fine strainer. And add to this the chopped chicken, with salt to taste and a little chopped parsley. Take cornmeal and work into it a lump of butter the size of an egg, adding boiling water and working constantly until it makes a paste the consistency of biscuit dough. Have ready a pile of the soft inner husks of green corn, and on each husk spread a lump of dough the size of a walnut. Into a flat cake covering the husk. In the centre of the dough put a teaspoonful of the chopped meat with minced olive. On a large husk put several tablespoonfuls of chopped meat with olives. Roll this together and lay on them other husks until the tamale is of the size desired. Tie the ends together with strips of fine husk and put in boiling water for 20 minutes. Either veal or pork may be used instead of chicken. Polenti, properly prepared, is a dish that requires much labour and scarcely repays for the time and exertion spent in its making. It differs from scrapple in that the ingredients are mixed in a sauce and poured over the mush instead of being mixed in the meal. In the new Buon Gusto restaurant in Broadway, they cook polenti to perfection, and when it is served with cioppino, it leaves nothing to be desired. This is the recipe. Polenti. For the gravy, make a little broth with veal bone, a small piece of beef, a pig's foot, neck, feet and gizzard of chicken. In a separate kettle, cook in hot oil 1 sliced onion, 1 clove of garlic, a little parsley, 1 bell pepper, 1 tomato, a small piece of celery, and a carrot. Cook until soft and then add this to the broth with a few dried mushrooms. Cook slowly for 30 minutes and then strain. For the mush, boil cornmeal until it is thoroughly done and then cool it until it can be cut in slices for frying. Mix butter and olive oil and heat in a frying pan, and into this put the slices of cornmeal, frying to a light brown. Place the fried cornmeal in a platter in layers, sprinkling each with grated Parmesan cheese, salt and pepper. Take parsley and 1 clove of garlic chopped fine and a can of French mushrooms cut in quarters, and fry in butter. Then add enough gravy to pour over the fried cornmeal. Place this in an oven for a few minutes, then serve. About dining. Table d'hote is the feature of San Francisco's restaurant life. It is the ideal method for those who wish a good dinner and who have not the inclination or the knowledge to order a special dinner. It is also the least expensive way of getting a good dinner. It also saves an exhibition of ignorance regarding the dishes, for if you are in doubt, all you have to do is to leave it to the waiter, and he will bring the best there is on the day's menu, and will serve it properly. It is really something to elicit wonder when one considers the possibilities of a table d'hote dinner in some of the less expensive restaurants. Take, for instance, the Buon Gusto in Broadway. This restaurant boasts a good chef, and the food is the finest the market affords. Here is served a 6-course dinner for 50 cents, and the menu card is typical of this class of restaurants. What is provided is shown by the following, taken from the bill of fare as it was served us. Hors d'oeuvres, 4 kinds, 5 kinds of salad, 2 kinds of soup, 7 kinds of fish, 4 kinds of paste, broiled spring chicken, green salad with French dressing, ice cream or rum omelette, mixed fruits, demi-tasse. With this is served a pint of good table wine. As one goes up with the scale of prices in the restaurants that charge $1, $1.25, $1.50, $2, $2.50, and $3 for their dinners, it will be found that the difference lies chiefly in the variety from which to choose and from the surroundings and service. Take, for example, the following typical menu for a $1 dinner. Serve at the Fior d'Italia and compare it with the 50-cent dinner just mentioned. Salami and anchovies, salad, chicken broth with Italian paste, fillet of English sole, sauce tartare, spaghetti or ravioli, escalope of veal, caper sauce, French peas with butter, roast chicken with chiffon salad, ice cream or fried cream, assorted fruits and cakes, demi-tasse. Wine with this dinner is extra. Now going a step up in the scale, we come to the $1.50 dinner as follows. Anchovies, salami. Note that it is the same as above. Combination salad, tortellini di Bologna soup, striped bass à la Libanaise, ravioli à la Genoese, and spaghetti with mushrooms, chicken sauté, Italian style with green peas, squab with lettuce, Zabaione, fruit, cheese, coffee. Wine is extra. Let us now look at the menu of the $3.50 dinner without wine. Pâté de foie gras, truffles on toast, salad, olives, Alice Falstaff, Italian ham, prosciutto, soup, semino italiano with brode di capone, pompano alla papalotti, tortellini with fungi, a funghetto, fritto misto, spring chicken sauté, carciofi all'inferno, capretto al forno con insalata, omelette celestine, fruit, cheese, and black coffee. This dinner must be ordered 3 days in advance. These menus will give a good idea of the different classes of dinners that can be obtained. Between our dinners to suit all tastes and pocketbooks. If you wish to go beyond these, there is no limit except the amount of money you have. If but the food value be taken into consideration, then one will be as well pleased with the 50-cent dinner as he will be at the higher priced meals. But if light and music and brilliant surroundings are desired, then one must pay for them as well as for the meal he eats. All of the restaurants mentioned serve good table d'hote dinners, giving an astonishing variety of foods for the money, and it is all cooked and served in a manner that leaves nothing to be desired. As before mentioned, if you wish a table d'hote dinner composed entirely of seafood, you can get it at the Shellfish Grotto for $1. A good rule to follow when dining at any of the restaurants is, when in doubt, order a table d'hote dinner. You will always get a good meal, for the least outlay of money and least expenditure of thought. Often one desires something a little different, and this is easy too, and you can conserve your brain energy and get the most for the least money by seeing the proprietor or manager of the restaurant and telling him that you wish to give a little dinner. Tell him how many will be in the party, and give him the amount you wish to spend. It will be surprising, sometimes, to see how much more you can get for a slight increase in the price. Of course, your wines and cocktails will be extra, and these must be reckoned in the cost. From this we come to the ordered dinner, and here is where your own knowledge and special desires come in. Here, too, comes a marked increase in the cost. You now have the widest range of possibilities, both as to viands and as to price. It is not at all difficult to have a dinner without wine that costs $25 a plate, and when you come down to the more normal dinners, unless you confine yourself to one or two dishes, you will find that you far exceed in price the table d'hote dinners of equal gastronomic value. While this is true, it is well to be able to order your dinner, for it frequently occurs that one does not care to go through the heavy course dinner provided table d'hote. Sometimes one wants a simple dish, or perhaps two, and it is well to know something about them and how to order them. We have made it a rule whenever we have seen something new on the bill of fare to order it, on the theory that we are willing to try anything once. And in this way we have greatly enlarged our knowledge of good things. It is also well to remember national characteristics, and understand that certain dishes are at their best at certain restaurants. For instance, you will be served with an excellent paste at a French restaurant, but if you want it at its best, you will get it at an Italian restaurant. On the other hand, if you desire a delicate entree, you will get the best at a French restaurant. For instance, one would not ask for sauerbraten anywhere except at a German restaurant. It will readily be seen that the elegant art of dining in San Francisco means much more than the sitting at table and partaking of what is put before you. Dining is an art, and its pleasure is greatly enhanced by a knowledge of foods, cooking, serving, national characteristics, and combinations of both foods and wines. How few people are there, for instance, who know that one should never drink any hard liquor, like whisky, brandy, or gin, with oysters. Many a fit of acute stomach trouble has been attributed to some food that was either bad or badly prepared, when the cause of the trouble was the fact that a cocktail had been taken just prior to eating oysters. Some of the possibilities of dining in San Francisco may be understood when we tell you of a progressive dinner. We had entertained one of the exposition commissioners from a sister state, and he was so well pleased with what he had learned in a gastronomic way that he said to us, "The governor of my state is coming, and I should like to give him a dinner that will open his eyes to San Francisco's possibilities. Would it be asking too much of you to have you help me do it?" "We shall be glad to. What do you want us to do?" "Take charge of the whole business. Do as you please and go as far as you like." "That is a wide order, General. What is the limit of price, and how many will be in the party?" "Just 6. That will include the governor and his wife, you two and myself and wife." "Let it be something unusual, and do not let the cost interfere." "What I want is something unusual. It has been told us that when the governor got back home he tried to tell some of his friends about that dinner, but they told him he had acquired the California habit of talking wide. This is the way we carried out the dinner, everything being arranged in advance. At 6:30 we called at the rooms of the governor in the Palace Hotel, and had served there dry martini cocktails with Russian caviar on toasted rye bread. An automobile was in waiting, and at 7 o'clock we were set down at Felix's in Montgomery Street, where a table was ready for us, and on it were served salami of various kinds, artichokes in oil, and ripe olives. Then came a service of soup, for which this restaurant is famous, followed by a combination salad, with which was served a bottle of Ponte Canet. The automobile carried us then over to Broadway, and at the Fior d'Italia our table was waiting, and here we were served with sand dumps or gratin, and a small glass of Sauterne. All the haste we made was on the streets, and when we finished our course at the Fior Italia, we whirled away over toward North Beach to the Guillaume du Jeu, where had been prepared especially for us tagliarini with chicken livers and mushrooms, and because of its success we had a bottle of La Crema Christi Spumante, the enjoyment of which delayed us. Again in the automobile to Copper's, where chicken portola was served with green peas. Accompanying this was a glass of Krug, and this was followed by a glass of Zabaione for dessert. Back again to the heart of the city, and we stopped at Raggi's in Montgomery Street near Commercial, where we had a glass of brandy, in which was a chinotti, a peculiar Italian preserved fruit, which is said to be a cross between a citron and an orange. Then around the corner to Goulardou and Rondel's, the Market Cafe, where from a plain pine table and on sanded floor we had our coffee royale. As a fitting climax for this evening, we directed the chauffeur to drive to the Cliff House, where, over a bottle of Krug, we talked it all over, as we watched the dancing and listened to the singing of the cabaret performers. This dinner, including everything from the automobile to the tips, cost but $15 for each one in the party. End of section 14.
Is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kirsten Ferreri. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining, by Clarence Edwords. Section 15. Something about Cooking. Cooking is sometimes a pleasure, sometimes a duty, sometimes a burden, and sometimes a martyrdom, all according to the point of view. The extremes are rarities, and sometimes duty and burden are synonymous. In ordinary understanding, we have American cooking and foreign cooking, and to one accustomed to plain American cooking, all variants, and all additions of spices, herbs, or unusual condiments, is classed under the head of foreign. In the average American family, cooking is a duty usually considered as one of the necessary evils of existence, and food is prepared as it is usually eaten, hastily, something to fill the stomach. The excuse most frequently heard in San Francisco for the restaurant habit and for living in cooped-up apartments is that the wife wants to get away from the burden of the kitchen and drudgery of housework. And like many other effects, this eventually becomes a cause, for both husband and wife become accustomed to better cooking than they could get at home, and there is a continuance of the custom, for both get a distaste for plainly cooked food, and the wife does not know how to cook any other way. Yet when all is considered, the difference between plain American cooking and what is termed foreign cooking is but the proper use of condiments and seasoning, combined with proper variety of the food supply from the markets. Herein lies the secret of a good table: proper combination of ingredients, and proper variation and selection of the provisions, together with proper preparation and cooking of the food. We have met with many well-educated and well-raised men and women whose gastronomic knowledge was so limited as to be appalling. All they knew of meats was confined to ordinary poultry, i.e. chickens and turkeys, and to beef, veal, pork, and mutton. Of these there were but 3 modes of cooking: frying, stewing, and baking, sometimes boiling. Their chops were always fried, as they knew nothing of the delicate flavor imparted by broiling. In fact, their knowledge was confined to the least healthful and least nutritious modes of preparation and cooking. Not only is this true of the average American family, but their lack of knowledge of the fundamentals of cooking and food values brings about a waste largely responsible for what is called the high cost of living. It is a trite, but nevertheless true saying, that a French family could live well on what an American family wastes. Waste in preparation is but the mildest form of waste. Waste consequent upon lack of knowledge of food values is the waste that is doubly expensive, for it not only wastes food, but it also wastes the system, whose energy is exhausted in trying to assimilate improper alimentation. It is a well-recognized medical fact that much of the illness of the Americans arises from 2 causes: improper food and improper eating methods. In Europe this fact was recognized and generally known so long ago that the study of food values and preparation for proper assimilation is one of the essential parts of every woman's education, and to such a degree has this been raised to a science, that schools and even colleges in cooking are to be found in many parts of England, France, and Germany. Francatelli, the great chef who is at the head of Queen Victoria's kitchen, boasts proudly of his diploma from the Parisian College of Cooking. The United States is now beginning to wake up to the fact that the preparation of food is something more than a necessary evil, and from the old cooking classes of our common schools has developed the classes in domestic science, that which was formerly considered drudgery now being elevated to an art, and dignified as a science. In Europe this stage was reached many generations ago, and there it is now an art, which has elevated the primitive process of feeding to the elegant art of dining. In San Francisco, probably more than in any other city in the United States, not even excepting New Orleans, this art has flourished for many years, with the result that the average San Franciscan is disappointed at the food served in other cities of his country, and always longs for his favorite restaurant, even as the children of Israel longed for the flesh pots of Egypt. One needs to spend a day in the Italian quarter of San Francisco to come to a full realization of the difference between the requirements of even the poorest Italian family and the average American family of the better class. We need but say that we have been studying this question for nearly 20 years, yet even now we meet with surprises in the way of new delicacies and modes of using herbs and spices in food preparation. If we were to attempt even to enumerate the various herbs, spices, flavorings, delicacies, and pastes to be found in a well-regulated Italian shop, it would take many pages of this book. Yet every one of these articles has its own individual and peculiar use, and the knowledge of these articles and how to use them is what makes the difference between American and foreign cooking. Each herb has a peculiar quality as a stomachic, and it must be delicately measured as if it were a medicine. The use of garlic, so much decried as plebeian, is the secret of some of the finest dishes prepared by the highest chefs. It must not be forgotten that in the use of all flavors and condiments there may be an intemperance, there lying the root of much of the bad cooking. Garlic, for instance, is a flavor and not a food. Yet many of the lower class foreigners eat it on bread, making a meal of dark bread, garlic, and red wine. It is offensive to sensitive nostrils and vitiates the taste when thus used, but when properly added to certain foods it gives an intangible flavor which never fails to elicit praise. What is true of garlic is also true of the many herbs that are used. It is easy to pass from a rare flavor that makes a most savory dish to a taste of medicine that spoils a dinner. With the well-known prodigal and wasteful habits of America, the American who learns the use of herbs usually makes the initial mistake of putting in the flavoring herbs with too lavish a hand, and it is only after years of experience that a knowledge of proper combinations is obtained. Visitors have often expressed wonder at the variety of foods and delicate flavors in San Francisco restaurants, and possibly this brief explanation may give some comprehension of why San Franciscans always want to get back to where they can get something to eat. Told in a Whisper. Surely the old Bohemians of San Francisco did not spend all their time in restaurants. How did they live when at home? This is what was said to us one day when we were talking about the old days and the old people. Indeed, they did not live all their time in restaurants. Some of the most enjoyable meals we have eaten have been in the rooms and apartments of our Bohemian friends, and these meals were prepared generally by each one present doing his or her part in making it a success. One would make the salad, another the main dish, and others do various forms of scullery work, and in the end we would have a meal that would often put to blush the efforts of many of the renowned chefs. Many people who come to San Francisco will wish to conserve their finances as much as possible, and they will wish to enjoy life in their apartments. There are also many people who live in San Francisco who need a little advice on how to get the best out of life, and we are going to whisper a few words to all such as these we have mentioned. You can be a Bohemian and have the very best sort of living in your own room for less than half the money it will take to live at the hotels and the restaurants, and we are sure many of you would like to know something about how to do it. It is not necessary to confine yourself to the few things in your limited experience. If you are going to be in San Francisco for more than a week, you will find that a little apartment, furnished ready for housekeeping, will give you opportunity to be independent and free. You will get your own breakfasts when and how you want them. Your lunches and dinners can be gotten in your rooms or at the restaurants, just as you are inclined. You will find delight and education in visiting the markets and the foreign stores where all the strange and unusual foods of all nations are to be found. You will discover better articles at less prices at the little Italian, French, Mexican, or Chinese stores and stalls than can be had in the most aristocratic stores in the city. Above all, you will find a joy of invention, and will be surprised at the delectable dishes you can prepare at a minimum of cost. When you visit San Francisco, you are desirous of so arranging your finances that you may see the most for the least outlay of money. After a strenuous day of sightseeing, you will scarcely feel like getting up a good meal. Consequently, then, you will follow the ideas suggested in this book and visit the various restaurants, thus obtaining a variety both in foods and in information of an educational nature. But sometimes you will not be tired, or you will wish to get up a little late supper after theatre, and it is then that you will be glad of the opportunity afforded by having your own kitchen arrangements, so that you can carry out your tastes and cook some of the strange and new foods that you have discovered in your rambles through the foreign quarters. Take the simple matter of sausage, for instance. Ordinarily we know of but three kinds: pork sausage, frankfurter, and bologna, neither very appetizing nor appealing, except sometimes the pork sausage for breakfast. Over in the little Italian and French shops you will find some of the most wonderful sausages that mind can conceive of. Some of these are so elaborate in their preparation that they cost, even in that inexpensive part of the city, 70 cents a pound, and the variety is almost as infinite as that of the pastes. In the Mexican stores you will find a sausage that gives a delightful flavor to anything it is cooked with, and it is when you see these sausages that your eyes begin to be opened. You now take cognizance of many things that heretofore escaped your observation. You see new canned goods, a wonderful variety of cheeses, strange dried vegetables and delicacies unheard of, preserved vegetables and fish and meats in oil, queer fish pickled and dried. You begin to learn of the many uses of olive oil in cooking and in food preparation. You see the queer shapes of bread, and note the numerous kinds of cakes and pastries that you never saw or heard of before. You see boxes of dried herbs, and begin to realize why you never have been able to reproduce certain flavors you have tasted in restaurants. You see strange-looking flat hams, and are told that they are Italian hams, and if you buy some, you will find that they cut the ham the wrong way, and instead of slicing it across the grain, they cut it in very thin slices down the length of the bone. Their flavor is more delicious than that of any ham you have tasted since you used to get the old-time genuine country smoked hams. But if you investigate a little deeper, you will learn that these hams were not put up in Italy at all, but that it is a special brand that is prepared in Virginia for the Italians. In the French stores you will find preserved cockscombs, snails, marvelous blood sausages with nuts in them, rare cheeses, prepared meats and jellies, and hundreds of delicacies unknown to you. You can spend days in these stores, finding something new all the time. We have been going there for years, and still run across new things. Remember that to the people of the Latin Quarter these things are all usual. Consequently, they think you know as much about them as they do, and will volunteer no information regarding them. Possibly they will smile at your ignorance when you ask them questions, but do not hesitate to ask, for they are courteous, and that is the only way you can find out things, and learn what all these new edibles are, and what they are good for. There is no greater possibility of interest than is to be found in the stores of San Francisco's Latin Quarter, and we mean by this the stores that cater to the people of the quarter. In stores and restaurants frequented by Americans, they cater to American tastes, and lose much of the foreign flavor. It is also well to bear in mind that it is not in the largest stores that you find the greatest variety when it comes to odd and new goods. A little shop, barely large enough to turn around in between counter and wall, may have enough of interest to entertain you for half an hour, and here the prices will be remarkably low, for these people have so little of the outside trade that they have not yet learned to add to their prices when they see an American face coming. What is true of the stores is also true of the vegetable stands, the meat shops, the fish stalls, and the bakeries. Here you will find better and fresher food supplies than in any of the similar places in other parts of the city, and the price is generally 1/3 less. The high cost of living has not reached this thrifty people with their inborn knowledge of the values of foods. They live twice as well as the average American family at half the cost. They combine knowledge of food values with the art of preparation, and have a resultant meal that is tasty, full-flavored, and nourishing at a minimum of expense. Perhaps you want a meal. Your thoughts at once run to steak and chops and fried potatoes. Nothing but a porterhouse or tenderloin steak or a kidney chop will do. It is the most expensive meat, and you think that of course it is the best and most nourishing. If the knowledge of food values were with you, you would get the less expensive and more nourishing cuts. A flank steak, perhaps, prepared en casserole, and you would have a fine dish for half the money. As it is in meats, so it is in all foods. For 10 cents 2 people can have a dinner of tagliarini that is at once nourishing and satisfying in flavor. Of course all this requires knowledge, but that is easily acquired, and it adds to the zest of life to know that you can do that which lifts eating from the plane of feeding to that of dining, that you can change existence into living, all because you dare to break away from conventionalities which make so many people affect ignorance of how to live, because they imagine it is an evidence of refinement. If they but knew it, their affectation and their ignorance is the hallmark of low caste. Now about this whisper. We have a friend who has a little apartment where he has kept bachelor's hall for many years. Here some of our most pleasant evenings have been spent, and we never fear to go on account of the possibility that he may be embarrassed or inconvenienced through lack of something to eat or drink, for he is never at a loss to prepare something dainty and appetizing for us, and it really seems sometimes that he makes a meal out of nothing. Often Charlie telephones us that he has discovered a new dish, and hurries us over to pass judgment on it. And by the way, many of the good dishes of Bohemia are the result of accident rather than design. Out of nothing. It is surprising what a good meal you can get up sometimes when there's not a thing in the house to eat. Let us give you an example. One evening 2 of our young friends came over to tell us their sweet secret, and with them was another young lady. While we were talking it over and making plans for the wedding, another friend dropped in because he said our light looked inviting. An hour or so of talk, and then one of us signaled to the other, and received the shocking signal back, "There's not a thing to eat in all the house." This called for an investigation of the larder, in which all joined with the following result: 2 cans of reed birds from China, each containing 12 of the little birds as large as your thumb. Item, 1 egg. Other items, 1 onion, 2 slices of dry bread, 1 green pepper, rather small, 1 dozen crackers. Item, 1 case of imported Italian Vin d'Oro Spumante. Item, 6 hearty appetites to be appeased. The gentleman who saw our light saw another, and rushed off to a barber shop and got 4 more eggs. Barbers use eggs, and they must be fresh ones, in shampooing, and our friend remembered it. The 2 young ladies and the young man prepared the table, and the other lady and the 2 gentlemen set about getting a meal. One of us made an omelette of the 5 eggs, the onion, and the green pepper, with crumbs of bread, and this is the recipe. Omelette à perruquier. Take 5 eggs and beat until very light. Roll 2 slices of dried bread to crumbs and mix with the beaten eggs. Chop fine 1 onion and 1 green pepper, season with salt and pepper. Pour a tablespoonful of olive oil in an omelette pan, and in this fry the peppers and onion to a light brown. When ready, turn this into the beaten eggs, and cook until done. Follow the rule of never disturbing a cooking egg or a sleeping child. Serve on a hot dish. Take 2 cans of Chinese reed birds, open them, and take therefrom the 2 dozen birds contained therein. In a hot frying pan, place the birds in the grease that comes around them, and heat them through. Toast 12 square crackers, and on each place 2 reed birds, and serve 2 on each of 6 hot plates. With both the omelette and the reed birds, serve Vin d'Oro. End of section 15.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Lyons, Naperville, Illinois. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords. Section number 16. Paste makes waste. In an Italian grocery store, we noticed a great variety of pastes in boxes arranged along the counter and began counting them. The proprietor noticed us and, with a characteristic shrug of his shoulders, said, "That is but a few of them. We have not room to show them all." In response to our inquiry regarding the number of kinds of paste made by Italians, he said there were more than 75. Ordinarily, we think of 1. Spaghetti, or possibly 2, including macaroni. If our knowledge goes a little farther, we think also of tagliarini, which is the Italian equivalent of noodles, as it is made with eggs. In New York, we were much impressed with the stress they laid on the serving of spaghetti, and one restaurant went so far as to advertise dinners given under the spaghetti vine. It appears that this is the only paste they know anything about. After one eats tagliarini or ravioli, one feels like paraphrasing the darky and saying, "Go away, spaghetti, you done lost your taste." Then comes tortellini, which, like ravioli, combines paste with meat and spinach. These may be considered the most prominent of the pastes, the others being variants in the making and cutting, each serving a special purpose in cooking, some being for soups, others for sauces, and others for dressing for meats. It is more than probable that the great variety comes from individual tastes in cutting or rolling. All Italian restaurants serve the paste as a relève rather than as an entree, which it usually follows, preceding the roast in the dinner. As a separate and distinct dish, it can well be made to serve as a full meal, especially when tagliarini is prepared after the following recipe. Tagliarini des Beaux-Arts. Cook 1 pound of tagliarini in boiling water 25 minutes, then draw off the water. To the tagliarini add a handful of mushrooms which have been sliced and fried in butter. Then add 3 chicken livers which have been chopped small and fried, 1 sliced truffle, 1 red pepper chopped fine, and a little Parmesan cheese. Make a brown sauce of 1/3 beef broth thickened with melted butter and flour and 2/3 tomato sauce, and pour this over the tagliarini. Sprinkle with the Parmesan cheese and serve very hot from a chafing dish. By Oliver, chef of Restaurant des Beaux-Arts, Paris. In San Francisco, one finds both the imported and the domestic paste, and frequently one hears the assertion that the imported is the better. This idea is born of the thought that all things from Europe are better than the same made in America. In fact, the paste that comes from Italy is neither so good in taste nor is it so clean in the making. We have visited a number of paste factories in San Francisco and have found them all scrupulously clean with the best of materials in the composition of the pastes. One often wonders how the pastes came to be so many and how they received their names. Names of some of them are accidents, as is illustrated by macaroni. According to an Italian friend who vouches for the fact, it received its name from an expression of pleasure. Macari means fine, excellent, and the superlative is macaroni. A famous Italian gourmet constantly desired the new dishes to please his taste. And one day his chef carried to him something that was unusual. The gourmet tasted it, cried out, "Macari!" tasted again, threw out his arms in delight, and cried, "Macaroni!" "What is the name of this wonderful dish?" "You have named it. It is macaroni." Tips and tipping. Tipping is variously designated. Some say it is a nuisance and should be abolished. Some call it an outrage and ask for legislative interference. Some say it is an extortion and refuse to pay it. Some say it is a necessary evil and suffer it. The wise ones look at it a little differently. Possibly it is best explained or excused, whichever way you wish to call it, by one of Gouverneur Morris's characters in a recent story, who says, "Whenever I go anywhere I find persons in humble situations who smile at me and wish me well. I smile back and wish them well. It is because at some time or other I have tipped them. To me, the system has never been an annoyance, but a delightful opportunity for the exercise of tact and judgment. We look upon tipping as a part of expense to be calculated upon, necessary to ensure good service, not only now but in the future, and it should always be computed in the expense of a trip or a dinner. Tipping, to our minds, is the oil that makes the wheels of life run smoothly. The amount of the tip is always a matter of individual judgment, dependent on the service rendered and the way it is rendered. The good traveler wants to tip properly, neither too little nor too much, thereby getting the best service, for in the last analysis the pleasure of a trip depends upon the service received. American prodigality and asininity is responsible for much of the abuse of tipping. Too many Americans, when they travel, desire to appear important, and the only way they can accomplish this is by buying the subserviency of menials who laugh at them behind their backs. A tip should always depend upon the service rendered. We make it a rule to withhold the tip from a careless or inconsiderate waiter, and always add to the tip a word of commendation when there has been extra good service. The amount of the tip depends, first on the service, second on the amount of the bill, and third on the character of the place where you are served. When we order a specially prepared dinner with our suggestions as to its composition and service, we tip the head waiter, the chef, the waiter, and the busboy. We have given dinners where the tips amounted to fully half as much as the dinner itself, and we felt that this part of the expense brought us the greatest pleasure. It is impossible to make a hard and fast rule regarding how much to give a waiter. Each person must use his or her own judgment. If you are in a foreign country, you might do as we did on our first trip to Paris. We wanted to do what was right, but not what most Americans think is right. We were at a hotel where only French were usually guests, and in order to do the right thing, we took the proprietor into our confidence and explained to him our dilemma. We asked him whom to tip and how much to give, and he got us out of our difficulty, and we found that the tips amounted to about as much for one whole week as we had been held up for in one day at the Waldorf Astoria. The Mythical Land. Notwithstanding the fact that Webster gives no recognition in his dictionary to the land of Bohemia or the occupants thereof, the land exists, perhaps not in a material way, but certainly mentally. Some have not the perception to see it. Some know not the language that admits entrance. Some pass it by every day without understanding it. Yet it as truly exists as any of the lands told of in our childhood fables and fairy stories. The old definition of Bohemian was a vagabond, a wayfarer. Possibly that definition may, to a certain extent, be true of the present-day Bohemian, for he is a mental vagabond and a mental wayfarer. In our judgment, the word comes from the French bon homme, for surely the Bohemian is a good man. Whatever may be the derivation, the fact remains that not to all is given the perception to understand, nor the eyes to see, and therein lies one of the dangers of writing such a book as this. If you read this and then hurry off to a specified restaurant with the expectation of finding the Bohemian atmosphere in evidence, you are apt to be disappointed, for frequently it is necessary to create your own Bohemian atmosphere. Then, too, all nights are not the same at all restaurants. For instance, if you desire the best service afforded in any restaurant, do not select Saturday or Sunday night, but if you will lay aside your desire for personal comfort in service and wish to study character, then take Saturday or Sunday night for your visit. It is very possible that you will think the restaurant has changed hands between Friday and Saturday. On Saturday and Sunday evening, the mass of San Francisco's great cosmopolitan population holds holiday, and the great feature of the holiday is a restaurant dinner, where there is music and glitter and joyous human companionship. At such times, waiters become careless and sometimes familiar. Cooks are rushed to such an extent that they do not give the care to their preparation that they take pride in on other nights, consoling themselves frequently with the thought that the Saturday and Sunday night patrons do not know or appreciate the higher form of gastronomic art. Remember also that the world is a looking glass. Smile into it and it smiles back. Frown and you get black looks. In Bohemia, we sometimes find it well to overlook soiled table napery, sanded floor, or untidy appearance. Of course, this is not in the higher class of restaurants, but there are times and places when you must remember you are making a study of human interest and not getting a meal, and you must leave your fastidiousness and squeamishness at home. It takes some time to get well within the inner circle of Bohemianism, but after you have arrived, you have the password, and all doors are open to you. If our friends think of a new story, they save it up until our next coming and tell us something that has always a bearing on Bohemia. For instance, how few of us know the origin of the menu card? It seems to be a natural thing, yet like all things it had a beginning, and this is the way it began, according to a good friend who told it to us. Frederick the Great was the lover of good eating, and his chef took pride in providing new and rare dishes for his delectation. But it frequently occurred that the great ruler permitted his appetite to overcome his judgment, and he would eat so heartily of all the food first set before him that when later and more delicious dishes came to the table, he was unable to do them justice. To obviate this, he ordered his chef to prepare each day a list of what was to be served, and to show their rotation during the meal, and in compliance with this order, the first menu card was written. To Frederick the Great is also attributed the naming of the German bread now called pumpernickel. According to one of our Italian friends, the story runs this way. Frederick wished some bread, and his chef sent him a loaf that was of unusual color and flavor. It did not please the king, and he was not slow to express his disapproval. He owned a horse named Nicholas, but commonly called Nico, and when the chef appeared before him to receive his censure for sending in distasteful bread, Frederick threw the loaf at his head, exclaiming, "Bon pour Nico!" From this it received its name, which has been corrupted to pumpernickel. After the doors are open to you, you will find not only many new stories, but you will learn of customs unusual and discover their origin dating back to the days whose history remains only in folklore. You will be let into family secrets of the alien quarters and will learn of hopes, aspirations, and desires that will startle you with their strangeness. You will find artists, sculptors, and writers of verse in embryo, and if you remain long enough in the atmosphere, you may see, as we have, some of these embryonic thinkers achieve fame that becomes nationwide. It is said of the islands of the South Seas that when one eats of certain fruit, it creates such a longing that the mind is never content until another visit is made. San Francisco's Bohemia lays no claim to persuasive fruit, but it is true that when one breathes in the atmosphere of this mythical world, it leaves an unrest that is only appeased by a return to where the whispering winds tell of enchanted land, where you get the best there is to eat, served in a manner that enhances its flavor and establishes it forever in your memory. End of section 16.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Scott Walter. www.sjwalter.com. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords. Section 17, Appendix, How to Serve Wines. A few hints regarding the proper serving of wines may not be amiss, and we give you here the consensus opinion of the most noted gourmets who have made a study of the best results from combinations. Never drink any hard liquors, such as whiskey, brandy, gin, or cocktails, with oysters or clams, as it is liable to upset you for the rest of the evening. With hors d'oeuvres, serve vermouth, sherry, marsala, or Madeira wine. With soup and fish, serve white wines, such as Rhine wine, Sauterne, or white Burgundy. With entrees, serve clarets or other red wines, such as Swiss, Bordeaux, Hungarian, or Italian wines. Burgundy may also be served at any of the later courses. With roasts, serve champagne or any of the sparkling wines. With coffee, serve kirsch, French brandy, or fine champagne. After coffee, serve a liqueur. Never serve more than 1 glass of any liqueur. The following wines may be considered the best types: Amontillado, Montillo, and Olorosa sherries. Austrian Burgundy is one of the finest wines, possessing rich flavor and fine perfume. Other Burgundies are Chablis, a white Burgundy, dry and of agreeable aroma; Chambertin, a sound, delicate wine with a flavor resembling raspberry; Clos de Vougeot, similar to Chambertin, and often called the king of Burgundy; Romani, a very rare and costly wine of rich ruby color with a delicate bouquet. Clarets are valued for their flavor and for their tonic properties. Some of the best are Chateau Grillé, a dessert wine of good flavor and fine aroma; Chateau Lafite has beautiful color and delicate flavor; Chateau Le Rosé, greater alcoholic strength and of fine flavor; Chateau Margaux, rich with delicate flavor and excellent bouquet; Pontet Canet, a heavier wine with good bouquet and fine flavor; Saint Julien, a lighter claret with good bouquet. German wines are of lighter character and are generally termed Rhine wines. The best varieties are Hochheimer, a light, pleasing, and wholesome wine; Brauneberger, a good variety with pleasing flavor and aroma; Dreimanner, similar to Brauneberger; Deidesheimer, similar to Brauneberger; Grafenberg, light and pleasant, good aroma; Johannisberger Schloss, one of the best of the German wines; Rüdesheimer Schloss, in class with Johannisberger. Italian wines are mostly red, the most noted in California being Chianti, and its California prototype, Tipo Chianti, made by the Asti colony. Lacrima Christi Spumanti, the finest Italian champagne, dry and of magnificent bouquet; Vindoro Spumanti, a high-class champagne, sweet and of fine bouquet and flavor; Lacrima Christi, a still wine of excellent flavor and bouquet; Malaga, a wine of high repute, sweet and powerful. A peculiar flavor is given to it through the addition of a small quantity of burned wine. Marsala is a golden wine of most agreeable color and aroma. Sauterne is a white Bordeaux, a strong, luscious wine, the best-known varieties being Chateau d'Yquem, remarkable for its rich and velvety softness; Barzoc, rich and good; Chateau Fillot, of rich color and good flavor; Chateau Latour Blanche, a white Sauterne of exquisite bouquet; Haute Sauterne, soft and mild, of good flavor. Vin de Grave, good and strong, good aroma and flavor. Vintage years have much to do with the quality of wines. The best vintage years are as follows: Champagnes, 1892; Rhine and Moselle, 1893; Burgundy, 1892, 1899, and 1904; Claret, 1898 and 1904; Port, 1896 and 1904; Sherry, 1882, 1890, 1898, and 1900. End of section 17.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Lyons, Naperville, Illinois. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords. Section 18. A good Bohemian dinner. Sometimes people desire to give a dinner and are at a loss as to the proper time to serve wines. The following menu will give some idea on the subject. Menu: Gibson cocktail, Canopy Norwegian. Serve these before entering dining room. Artichoke hearts in oil, ripe olives, celery, Amontillado sherry, oysters on half shell, bisque of écrevisse, Chablis or white sauterne, Sandab's Edward VII, sliced cucumbers, iced, escargot français, Chateau Lafite, cassoulet of terrapin, Maryland, Romanée, tagliarini des Beaux-Arts, punch pistache, cigarettes, alligator pears with kumquats, French dressing, chicken portola, Krug Private Cuvée Brut, creamed new potatoes, celery Victor, French peas, Zabaione, Reina Cabot, coffee royale, cigarettes, Grand Marnier. In our travels through Bohemia, it has been our good fortune to gather hundreds of recipes of new, strange, and rare dishes prepared by those who look farther than the stoking of the physical system in the preparation of foods. Some of these are from chefs in restaurants and hotels, some from men and women of the foreign colonies, and some from good friends who lent their aid in our pleasurable occupation. That we cannot print them all in a volume of this size is our regret, but another book now in preparation will contain them, together with other talks about San Francisco's foreign quarters. From our store we have selected the following as being well worth trying. Onion soup. Cut 4 large onions in large pieces and put them in 6 ounces of butter with pepper and salt. Slowly stew this in a little beef stock and a little milk, stirring constantly, for 1 hour. Add more stock and milk and let cook slowly for another hour. In a tureen, place slices of bread sprinkled with 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Beat the yolks of 4 eggs and mix them with a tablespoonful of the soup and pour this over the bread and cheese. Cover this for 5 minutes and then pour over it the rest of the soup. Kreyol Gumbo soup. Take 2 young chickens cut in pieces, roll in flour, and fry to light brown. Take the fried chicken, a ham bone stripped of meat for flavor, a tablespoonful of chopped thyme, of rosemary, 2 bay leaves, a sprig of tarragon, and boil in 4 quarts of water until the meat loosens from the bones. Then slice and fry brown 2 large onions and add 2 heaping quarts of sliced okra and 1 cut-up pod of red pepper. Stir all over the fire until the okra is thoroughly wilted. Then remove the larger bones and let cook 3/4 of an hour before serving. Half an hour before serving, add a can of tomatoes or an equal quantity of fresh ones and a pint of shrimps, boiled and shredded. Have a dish of well boiled and dry rice and serve with 2 or 3 tablespoons in each soup plate. Oyster salad. To a solid pint of oysters, use a dressing made as follows. Beat well 2 eggs and add to them half a gill each of cream and vinegar, half teaspoonful mustard, celery seeds, salt each, 1/10 teaspoon cayenne, and a tablespoonful of butter. Put all in a double boiler and cook until it is as thick as soft custard, about 6 minutes, stirring constantly. Take from the fire. Heat the oysters in their own liquor to a boiling point, then drain and add the dressing. Mixing lightly, set away in cold place until needed. Italian salad. Soak 2 salt herrings in milk overnight and then remove the bones and skin and cut up in small pieces. Cut in small pieces 1 1/2 pounds each of cold roast veal and cold boiled tongue, and add to these and the herrings 6 boiled potatoes, half a dozen small cucumber pickles, and 2 small boiled beets, all cut up, and 2 raw apples, 3 boiled carrots, and 1 large boiled celery root, all minced. Mix all the above in salad bowl and pour over it mayonnaise dressing. Garnish the tops with hard-boiled eggs sliced and capers and ripe olives from which the stones have been removed. Garnish the bowl with parsley and in the center put hard-boiled eggs stuffed with capers. Solari's crab louis. Take meat of crab in large pieces and dress with the following: 1/3 mayonnaise, 2/3 chili sauce, small quantity chopped English chow chow, a little Worcestershire sauce and minced tarragon, shallots, and sweet parsley. Season with salt and pepper and keep on ice. Soles with wine. Take fillet of sole and pound lightly with blade of knife, then soak them 2 hours in beaten eggs seasoned with salt and pepper. When ready to cook, roll them in breadcrumbs and fry in olive oil. Take a little of that oil and put in another pan with a tablespoonful of butter and season with salt and pepper, and again cook fish in this, adding half a glass of dry white wine. Sprinkle with chopped parsley and let cook 5 minutes. Sprinkle with Parmesan cheese and put slices of lemon around it. Serve on hot plates. Grilled mushrooms. Skin and remove stalks from large fresh mushrooms and lay on a dish with a little fine olive oil, pepper, salt, and over them for 1 hour. Broil on a gridiron over a clear, sharp fire and serve them with the following sauce. Mushroom sauce. Mince the stalks or any spare pieces of mushrooms fine. Put in a stewpan with a little broth, some chopped parsley, young onions, butter, and the juice of a lemon, or instead of the latter, the yolk of an egg beaten up in cream. Beat all together and pour around the mushrooms. Italian turta. Cut very fine the tender part of 1 dozen artichokes. Take 1 loaf of stale breadcrumbs, moisten and squeeze, and add 3 tablespoonsful of grated cheese, 3 cloves of garlic, bruised, 1 onion chopped fine, several sprigs of parsley chopped fine, a little celery, and half a cup of olive oil. Mix all together thoroughly with plenty of pepper and salt and make into a loaf. Bake slowly 45 minutes. Œufs au soleil. Poach 8 fresh eggs and then take them out and place in cold water until cool. Lay them for a quarter of an hour to marinate in a glass of white wine with sweet herbs. Dry on a cloth and dip in a batter of flour mixed with equal quantities of ale and water to the consistency of double cream. Fry to light brown. Eggs with wine. Put 3 cupfuls of red wine into a casserole and add 3 tablespoonfuls of sugar, rind of a half of lemon, raisins, and sweet almonds blanched and chopped. When the wine boils, break the eggs into it as in poaching eggs. Let them cook well and then put in a serving dish. Add 1 tablespoonful of flour to the wine and cook to a cream, then pour over the eggs. Italian risotto. Soak 2 level teacups of rice. Mash 2 cloves of garlic and mix with a little minced parsley. Soak a dozen dried mushrooms in a little water until soft, then chop fine and drain. Cover the bottom of a saucepan with olive oil. Place over the fire until quite hot. Then put in the garlic, parsley, and mushrooms and a half a can of tomatoes and cook half an hour. Drain the rice and put in a saucepan, adding a little broth, half a cup at a time to keep from burning, and add, stirring constantly, the other ingredients, cooking all together until the rice is done. Salt to taste, sprinkle with Parmesan cheese. Scallops of sweetbread. Parboil the sweetbreads and then glaze in reduce allemande sauce. Dip in breadcrumbs and fry in butter until a light brown. When done, dish in close order and fill center with Toulouse ragout as follows. Toulouse ragout. Prepare a half a dozen fine, large cockscombs, 2 dozen button mushrooms, small pieces of sweetbreads, and a proportionate quantity of truffles. Place all in a stewpan and add a small ladleful of drawn butter sauce and the juice of a lemon. Cook a few minutes. Lamb chops marinade. Soak kidney lamb chops in the following mixture for 12 hours and then broil. 4 tablespoonfuls olive oil, 1 tablespoonful tarragon vinegar, 1 small sliced onion, 1 mashed clove of garlic, 1 broken up bay leaf, 12 whole black peppers, 6 cloves, 1 saltspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons full of dried thyme, strips of parsley, and lemon peel. Spanish chicken pie. Cut up a chicken and boil until tender. Cut up and fry in chicken fat 2 onions, 2 green peppers, stirring in 1 1/2 tablespoonful of flour. Have ready 5 tomatoes stewed and put in 2 dozen ripe olives with a small clove of garlic mashed. Grate 7 large ears of corn, season with salt, and put in a layer in a greased baking pan, then chicken, then the other ingredients with a little of the gravy. Stir all together and bake until brown. Chicken jambalaya. Cut a young chicken into small pieces and stew until tender, having the meat covered with the broth when done. Remove the meat, drain and fry to light brown with 2 slices of onion. Put in the chicken, onion, and 100 California oysters back into the broth and season with salt, pepper, juice of a lemon, bruised clove of garlic, chopped green pepper, and a pinch of red pepper. Let all come to a boil. Wash and dry 2 cups of rice and put into the soup and cook until thoroughly done and moderately dry, 25 minutes. Serve hot or cold. Cuajatale en mole. This is Mexican turkey in red pepper, a favorite banquet dish. Cut a young turkey into small pieces and boil with shallots and salt. Take half a pound of red peppers, scalded and seeded, and grind fine with black peppers, celery seed, cloves, allspice, and mustard, about half a teaspoon of each, and add to this some of the broth in which the turkey was cooked. Put a pound of lard in a skillet, and when boiling, put in the mixture with the turkey and let cook 10 minutes, sending it to the table hot. Delmonico raisin sauce. Brown butter in a skillet and stir in a teaspoonful of flour, forming a smooth paste. Add 1 cup of hot soup stock, stirring constantly. While boiling, put into this a handful of raisins, handful of blanched almonds pounded, half a lemon sliced thin, a few cloves, a pinch of cinnamon, and a little horseradish. Fine for roast beef. Poulet à la Napoli. Cut and trim a chicken as for fricassee. Take the wings, drumsticks, thighs, and 2 pieces of the breast and steep them in cold water half an hour. Drain and wipe dry and dust over with flour and set aside. Take the rest of the chicken with the giblets and chop small. With water, let this simmer for 2 hours, making a strong broth with a little veal, 2 ounces or more. Slice an onion into rings, which place in the bottom of a stewpan with an ounce of butter. To this add the meat and giblets and a pint of white broth. Let all simmer but not boil or let color. Over this pour common broth until covered and bring slowly to boiling point. Add a small bouquet of herbs and simmer for an hour, then strain. Thicken a little and then simmer in this the stalks and peelings of a 1/4 pound of mushrooms and the chicken that was previously prepared and dusted with flour. When done, strain them and drain the chicken. Strain the sauce and thicken with flour until it is the consistency of a rather thin batter. Dip the pieces of chicken into the batter until well coated and set aside until it is cold. Then dip the chicken into well-beaten eggs and cover with breadcrumbs. Let set and then repeat. In hot olive oil, fry the chicken until a golden brown. Serve on a napkin and garnish with parsley and potatoes duchesse. Cook the peeled mushrooms in the remaining sauce before the last thickening and serve in gravy boat to pour over the chicken. Zabaione. Beat together hard for 6 minutes 6 eggs and 4 teaspoonsfuls of powdered sugar in a double boiler and place over a gentle fire, never ceasing to whip until the contents become stiff enough to sustain a coffee spoon upright in the middle. While whipping, add 3 wineglassfuls of Marsala and 1 liqueur glass of maraschino brandy. Pour into tall glasses or cups and serve either hot or cold. Peaches à la princesse. Have 6 fine peaches, not too ripe, and place in saucepan with concave side up. Take 1 peach, peeled, and mince with a dozen macaroons, adding the yolk of an egg and half an ounce of sugar. Mix all well together, and with this fill the half peaches. Moisten all with half a cup of white wine and sprinkle with sugar. Bake in a hot oven 10 minutes and pour over Zabaione and serve. This will make a most delicious dessert dish. Sultana Roll. Add the beaten yolks of 7 eggs to 1 pint of boiling milk, 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoonful of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoonful of almond extract. When thick, add 2½ cups of thick cream. Cool and freeze. Line the bottom of a mold with sultana raisins which have been soaked in sherry wine 24 hours. Put a layer of frozen cream, then raisins, continuing until all is used. Pack in ice and salt 2 hours and serve with caramel sauce. Caramel sauce. Butter the inside of a saucepan. Put in 2 ounces of unsweetened chocolate and melt over hot water. Add 2 cups of light brown sugar and mix well. Add 1 ounce of butter and half a cup of rich milk. Cook until mixture forms a soft ball when tested in cold water. Flavor with vanilla and pour, while hot, over each surface of the roll. It immediately hardens, forming a delicious caramel covering to the ice cream. Welsh Rarebit. Take 1 pound of mild American cheese and put in saucepan. Add 5 wineglassfuls of old ale. Place over the fire and stir until it is thoroughly blended and melted. Pour this over slices of delicately browned toast, serving hot. Coffee Royal. Take of the best mocha coffee 1 part, of the best Java coffee 2 parts. Put 6 tablespoonsful of the mixture into a bowl and add an egg well beaten. Stir the mixture 5 minutes. Add half a cup of cold water, cover tightly, and let stand several hours. Put into a coffee pot the coffee mixture and add 4 large cups of boiling water, stirring constantly. Let it boil briskly for 5 minutes. Only then set on the back of the stove 5 minutes. Before serving, add a small tablespoonful of pure French brandy to each cup. Sweeten to taste. Reina Cabot. Mix at table and serve on hot toasted Bent's biscuit. Take a 1/4 pound of ripe dark Roquefort cheese and rub with a piece of butter the size of a walnut until smooth, adding a teaspoonful of Worcestershire sauce and a wineglassful of sherry with a pinch of paprika, rubbing until it is smooth. This is best mixed in shallow bowl or soup plate. Virginia Eggnog. Beat separately the yolks and whites of 10 eggs, the yolks to a soft cream. To the beaten yolks add 1 pound of granulated sugar, beating until fully blended and very light. Let 1 quart of fresh milk come to a boil and pour over the yolk of egg and sugar, stirring constantly until well blended. To this add 1 gill of French brandy or 1/2 pint of good whiskey. On top of this place the beaten white of egg and grated nutmeg. Serve either hot or cold. Mint Julep. Bruise several sprigs of mint in a mixing glass with pulverized sugar. Fill the glass with ice and pour over it a jigger of whiskey. Let stand for 10 minutes and then put in a dash of Jamaica rum. Dress with sprigs of mint and sprinkle with powdered sugar. Serve with straws. Index. Bills of fare. Beefsteak Spanish, celery Victor, chicken country style, in the shell, jambalaya, leon d'oro, alla Napoli, pie, Spanish, portola, chili rellenos, clam fritters, chowder, coffee royal, crab louis, stew, dessert, Italian, eggnog, Virginia, eggs, Spanish, with wine, de soleil, fish, soles with wine, sole Edward VII, sandab fillet, cold, frito misto, lobster a la Newburgh, lamb chops marinade, mussels mariniere, mushrooms grilled, mint julep, menu, model. Oysters a la Catalan, a la Poulette, omelette, peaches a la Princesse, planked filet mignon, polenti, cuajatole en mole. Rice, Spanish, Milanese, Italian. Reina Cabot, salad, Italian, Palace grill, oyster. Sauerbraten, sauce, Delmonico raisin, caramel, mushroom. Scrapple, shrimp Kreyol, Antoine, snails bordelaise. Soup, bisque of crawfish, Kreyol gumbo, onion. Sultana Roll, sweetbreads scalloped. Torta, Italian, Toulouse ragout, tamales, tagliarini des beaux-arts, terrapin à la Maryland, wines, how to serve, Welsh Rarebit, Zabaione. Restaurants, Blanco's, Bonini's Barn, Buon Gusto, Castilian, Coppa's, Fashion Charlie's, Felix, Fior d'Italia, Flytrap, Frank's, Fred Solari's, Gianduja, Hang Farlow, Heidelberg Inn, Hofbrau, Hotel St. Francis, Jack's, Jules, La Madrelina, Leon d'Oro, Luna's, Mint, Negroes, Odeon, Palace Hotel, Poodle Dog, Poodle Dog, Berger Franks, Portola Louvre, Rathskeller, Shellfish Grotto, Solari's, Tate's, Tescho's, Vesuvius, Old Time Restaurants, Bab's, Baldwin Hotel, Bezuro's, Berger, California House, Call, Captain Cropper, Campy's, Christian Good, Cliff House, Cobweb Palace, Delmonico, El Dorado House, Frank's, Goby's, Goodfellows Grotto, Hoffman House, Iron House, Johnson's Oyster House, Jack's, Louvre, Matanta, Manning's, Marchand's Marshall's Chop House, Martin's, Maison Dorée, Nevada, New York, Old Louvre, Perini's, Pierre, Poodle Dog, Pup, Peter Job, Palace of Art, Pop Floyd, Reception, Sanguinetti's, Tehama House, Three Trees, Tortoni, Thompson's, Viticultural, and Zincan's. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords.
Is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kirsten Ferreri. Bohemian San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwords. Section 13. Clams and Abalones. We cannot dispose of the shellfish of San Francisco without a word or two about clams, for certainly there is no place where they are in greater variety and better flavor. In fact, the clam is the only bivalve of this part of the coast that has a distinctive and good flavor. Several varieties are to be found in the markets, the best and rarest being the little rock clams that come from around Drake's Bay, just above the entrance to Golden Gate. These are most delicious in flavor, and should never be eaten otherwise than raw. The sand, or hardshell, or as they are sometimes called little necks, are next in choiceness, and then come the Pismo Beach clams, noted for their flavor and enormous size. The mud clam is good for chowder, but not so good as either of the varieties mentioned. The Bohemian way to have your clams is to go to the shore of Bolinas Bay, or some other equally retired spot, and have a clam bake, or else take a pot along with the other ingredients and have a good clam chowder. This, however, may be prepared at any time, and is always a good meal. Clam fritters, when prepared according to the recipe given herein, is one of the best methods of preparing the clam, and it has the peculiarity of being so tasty that one feels there is never enough cooked. Of all the ways of cooking clams, chowder takes precedence as a rule, and it is good when made properly. By that we do not mean the thin, watery stuff that is served in most of the restaurants, and called clam chowder just because it happens to be made every Friday. That is fairly good as a clam soup, but it is no more chowder than a Mexican soup approaches crawfish bisque. There is but one right way to make clam chowder, and that is either to make it yourself, or closely to superintend the making, and this is the way to make it. Clam chowder. Take 1 quart of shelled sand clams, 2 large potatoes, 2 large onions, 1 clove of garlic, 1 sweet pepper, 1 thick slice of salt pork, 1/2 pound small oyster crackers, 1/2 glass sherry, 1 tablespoonful Worcester sauce, 1 tomato, salt and pepper. In a large stewpan place the salt pork cut into small dice, and let this fry slightly over a slow fire until the bottom of the stewpan is well greased. Take this off the fire and put in a layer of potatoes sliced thin, on top of the salt pork, then a layer of onions sliced thin, and a layer of clams. Put on this salt and pepper and sprinkle with a little flour and then a layer of crackers. Chop the sweet pepper and tomato fine and mix them with the bruised and mashed garlic. On top of each succession of layers put a little of the mixture. Continue making these layers until all the ingredients are placed in the stewpan, and then pour on the top sufficient water to just show. Cover tightly and cook gently for half an hour. Pour on the Worcester sauce and sherry just before serving. Do not stir this while cooking, and in order to prevent its burning, it should be cooked over an asbestos cover. When done, this should be thick enough to eat with a fork. Among the good Bohemians who lived in San Francisco as a child, when it was in the post-pioneer days, and who has enjoyed the good things of all the famous restaurants, is Mrs. Emma Starrett, who has given us the following recipe for clam fritters, which we consider the most delicious of all we have ever eaten, and when you try them you will agree with us. Clam fritters. Take 2 dozen clams, washed thoroughly and drained. Put in chopping bowl and chop, not too fine. Add to these 1 clove of garlic mashed, 1 medium-sized onion chopped fine. Add breadcrumbs sufficient to stiffen the mass, chopped parsley, celery, and herbs to taste. Beat 2 eggs separately and add to the clams. If too stiff to drop from a spoon, add the strained liquor of clams. Drop tablespoonfuls of this mixture into hot fat, turn and cook for sufficient time to cook through, then drain on brown paper and serve. Abalones are a univalve that has been much in vogue among the Chinese, but has seldom found place on the tables of restaurants, owing to the difficulty in preparing them, as they are tough and insipid under ordinary circumstances. When made tender either by the Chinese method of pounding or by steeping in vinegar, they serve the purpose of clams but have not the fine flavor. The Hofbrau restaurant is now making a specialty of abalones, but it takes sentiment to say that one really finds anything extra good in them. Another shellfish much in vogue among the Italian restaurants is mussels, which are found to perfection along the coast. These are usually served bordelaise, and make quite a pleasant change when one is surfeited with other shellfish, but the best recipe is mussels mariniere. Thoroughly clean the mussels, and then put them in a deep pan, and pour over them half a glass of white wine. Chop an onion, a clove of garlic, and some parsley fine, and put in the pan, together with a tablespoonful of butter. Let these boil very quick for 12 minutes, keeping the pan tightly covered. Take off half shells and place the mussels in a chafing dish, and pour them over bechamel sauce, and then add sufficient milk gravy to cover. Serve hot from chafing dish. Where fish abound. According to David Starr Jordan, acknowledged world authority on fish, there is a greater variety of fish in Monterey Bay than anywhere else in the world. Monterey Bay is one of San Francisco's sources of supply, consequently we have a greater variety of fish in our markets than are to be found anywhere else. In the markets are fish from all parts of the Pacific Ocean, from the tropics to far north in the Arctics, while denizens of the waters all the way between add to the variety. The essential element of goodness in fish is freshness, and it is always fresh in San Francisco markets, and also in the restaurants. Of all varieties, 2 rank first in the estimation of gourmets, but of course that is purely a matter of individual taste. According to the above-mentioned authority, the finest fish that swims is the sand dab. Some gourmets, however, will take issue with him on this, and say the pompano is better. Others will prefer the mountain trout. Be that as it may, they are all good, with many others following close in choice. Fine striped bass from the ocean, or black bass from the fresh water, takes high place in preference. Then there is sole, both in the fillet and Rex, as prepared at Jules' under the Monadnock building. Tom cod, rock cod, fresh mackerel and fresh cod, white bait, and boned smelt all are excellent fish, but were we to attempt to tell of all the fish to be found here, we would have to reproduce a piscatorial directory. There are 2 good methods of acquiring knowledge of the fish of San Francisco. Go to the wharves and see them come and go to the wholesale markets, down in Clay Street, below Montgomery. You will then begin to realize that we certainly do have a variety of good fish. Now for a little bohemianism of a different sort. Recently there came to San Francisco with his wife an actor whose name used to be almost a household word among theater-goers, and when we say "the villain still pursued her," all you old-timers will know who we mean. When he was here in the years long gone by, it was his custom to go to the old California markets, select what he desired to eat, then take it to the restaurant and have it cooked. And the old atmosphere came back to him on his recent arrival, and he revived the old custom. "Meet us at the California Market," was the telephone message that came to us, and we were there, for we knew that something good was in store for us. First we went spying through the market from end to end, and all the side aisles, spying out the land. It is not possible to enumerate what we saw. If you want to know, go there and see for yourselves. Having seen, we were told to go and select what we wished to have for our dinner, and then the selection began, and there was a feast of buying fish, meats, vegetables, and delicacies of all sorts, even to French pastry. Our purchases were ordered sent to the restaurant in the corner of the market where the chef had already been duly seen, and then came each particular idea as to how the food was to be cooked. We had sand dabs Meunier, Chateaubriand with mushrooms, Italian squash fried in oil with a flavor of garlic, French pastry, and coffee, together with some good California tipo Chianti, all flavored with such a stream of reminiscence that we forgot that such things as clocks existed. It was the first time our theatrical friends had tasted sand dabs, for this fish has come to San Francisco markets only in recent years, and they declared that it was the only fish fit to be eaten. It is possible that they were prejudiced by the sentiment of the surroundings, and consequently not exactly in position to be good judges. All Italian restaurants serve fish well. At the New Buon Gusto you will find a most excellent cioppino with polenti, and if you have not experienced this, we advise you to try it as soon as possible. At the Gianduja you will find sand dabs au gratin to be very fine. At Jack's, striped bass cooked in wine is what we think the best of the fish to be found in the market, or at the restaurants cooked that way. Jules's is famous for his Rex sole. At all of the French and Italian restaurants small fry is cooked to perfection. If you wish fish in any way, or of any kind, you will make no mistake in asking for it at any of the French or Italian restaurants, or at the Shellfish Grotto, and if you are in doubt regarding what to order, just take the proprietor into your confidence, tell him you are a stranger in the city, and ask him to serve you fish the best way he prepares it. You will not be disappointed. End of section 13.